The early 20th century was a time of great change and unrest in Europe. Countries jostled for power, forming alliances that would have unimaginable consequences. Nationalism, a fierce pride in one's country, began to take hold, often with dangerous results. Imperial ambitions, the desire to control vast empires, fueled rivalries between nations. Germany, a rising power, challenged the established order, further increasing tensions. Amidst this backdrop of suspicion and fear, a spark ignited the First World War. In June 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was assassinated in Sarajevo. Austria-Hungary, blaming Serbia for the assassination, declared war. A complex web of alliances then drew other countries into the conflict. Germany, allied with Austria-Hungary, mobilized for war. Russia, allied with Serbia, did the same. Germany, fearing a two-front war, attacked France, an ally of Russia. Great Britain, obligated by its treaty with Belgium, declared war on Germany after German troops invaded Belgium on their way to France. Within weeks, Europe was engulfed in a war that would forever change the course of history. This was a new kind of war, a total war that would demand unprecedented sacrifice and forever alter the political and social landscape of Europe. Millions of soldiers, swept up in the tides of nationalism, marched off to war, believing it would be a short and glorious conflict. They could not have imagined the horrors that awaited them in the trenches of the Western Front. The Western Front, a 400-mile stretch of land from the English Channel to Switzerland, became the central battleground of World War I. Here, a new and terrifying form of warfare emerged: trench warfare. Soldiers dug into elaborate trench systems separated by a desolate expanse of land known as no man's land. Machine guns, artillery, and poison gas transformed the battlefield into a landscape of death and destruction. The Battle of the Somme, fought in 1916, epitomized the horrors of trench warfare. On the first day of the battle alone, the British Army suffered nearly 60,000 casualties, the bloodiest day in British military history. The battle raged for months, claiming over 1 million lives from both sides for minimal territorial gains. The Battle of Verdun, fought in the same year, was another brutal example of attrition warfare, claiming hundreds of thousands of lives. New technologies added to the horrors of the war. Machine guns, capable of firing hundreds of rounds per minute, mowed down soldiers by the thousands. Artillery barrages transformed the battlefield into a moonscape of craters and mud. Poison gas, a terrifying new weapon, choked and blinded soldiers, leaving many to die a slow and agonizing death. Life in the trenches was a nightmare. Soldiers endured constant shelling, sniper fire, and the ever-present threat of enemy attack. Disease was rampant, and rats infested the trenches, feeding on the dead and dying. The psychological toll of trench warfare was immense, leaving many soldiers with what would later be known as shell shock, a form of post-traumatic stress disorder. By 1918, after 4 long years of war, Europe lay exhausted and in ruins. Millions lay dead, and entire countries were on the brink of collapse. The empires of Germany, Austria-Hungary, Ottoman Turkey, and Russia had crumbled. In their place, new nations emerged, redrawn on the map of Europe. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, officially ended the war. The treaty, however, proved to be a deeply flawed document, sowing the seeds of future conflict. Germany, blamed for the war, was forced to accept harsh punishments. They were forced to cede territory, disarm, and pay massive reparations to the victorious Allied powers. The treaty left Germany humiliated and resentful. The economic burden of reparations crippled the German economy, fueling social unrest and political instability. The loss of territory and the limitations placed on the German military created a deep sense of resentment among the German people. Many Germans believed their country had been unfairly treated, a sentiment that would be exploited by extremist groups in the years to come. The Treaty of Versailles also failed to address the underlying causes of the war. Nationalism, imperialism, and the complex web of alliances that had drawn Europe into conflict remained largely unaddressed. The League of Nations, created in the aftermath of the war to prevent future conflicts, proved to be weak and ineffective. Without a lasting peace, Europe remained vulnerable to the forces that had plunged it into war just a few years earlier. Section 4. Seeds of Conflict: The Rise of Fascism. The aftermath of World War I created fertile ground for the rise of extremist ideologies. In Italy and Germany, the social and economic turmoil of the post-war years gave rise to fascism, a radical, authoritarian, nationalist ideology. Fascism promised to restore national pride, revive the economy, and establish a new order based on strength and unity. In Italy, Benito Mussolini, a charismatic leader, exploited the widespread discontent and fear of communism to establish a fascist dictatorship. Mussolini's Black Shirts, a paramilitary force, terrorized political opponents and consolidated his grip on power. In Germany, Adolf Hitler, a decorated veteran of World War I, rose to prominence as the leader of the Nazi Party, a far-right political party that espoused a virulent form of nationalism, anti-Semitism, and racial purity. Hitler capitalized on the widespread resentment towards the Treaty of Versailles, the economic crisis gripping Germany, and the fear of communism to gain popular support. He promised to restore Germany to its former glory, rebuild the military, and create a 1,000-year Reich free from the perceived enemies of the German people. As fascist regimes consolidated power in Italy and Germany, they began to pursue aggressive foreign policies. Italy invaded Ethiopia in 1935. Seeking to expand its colonial empire. Germany, in defiance of the Treaty of Versailles, began to rearm, expanding its military and reclaiming lost territories. The League of Nations, weakened by internal divisions and a lack of political will, proved powerless to stop the rise of fascism and the growing threat of another world war. Section 5, A World Ablaze. The Second World War explodes. On September 1st, 1939, the world watched in horror as German tanks rolled into Poland, marking the beginning of World War II. Hitler's invasion of Poland, a calculated act of aggression, shattered the fragile peace that had followed World War I. Great Britain and France, obligated by their treaties with Poland, declared war on Germany 2 days later. World War II was a truly global conflict, fought on multiple fronts and involving the vast majority of the world's nations. In Europe, German forces, employing a lightning-fast military tactic known as Blitzkrieg or Lightning War, quickly overran much of Western Europe. The Battle of Britain, a months-long air campaign waged by the German Luftwaffe against the United Kingdom, demonstrated the resilience of the British people and the strategic importance of air power. On June 22, 1941, Hitler, breaking his pact with Stalin, launched a massive invasion of the Soviet Union, opening up the Eastern Front. The Eastern Front would become the deadliest theater of the war, marked by unimaginable brutality and suffering. The Battle of Stalingrad, a brutal 6-month siege, became a turning point in the war, halting the German advance in the east and ultimately leading to Germany's defeat. In the Pacific, Japan, seeking to establish dominance in Asia, launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, Hawaii on December 7, 1941. The attack on Pearl Harbor, which killed over 2,400 Americans, propelled the United States into World War II. Section 6, From Soldiers to Statesmen, Faces of Conflict. World War II was a conflict shaped by larger-than-life figures who played pivotal roles in the course of the war. Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, rallied the British people with his defiant speeches and unwavering resolve in the face of Nazi aggression. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the President of the United States, led his country through the Great Depression and World War II, providing vital leadership and resources to the Allied war effort. Joseph Stalin, the ruthless dictator of the Soviet Union, led his country to victory against Nazi Germany, but at a terrible cost. Stalin's regime was responsible for the deaths of millions of his own people through forced labor, executions, and starvation. Despite his brutality, Stalin played a crucial role in the defeat of Nazi Germany. On the Axis side, Adolf Hitler, the Führer of Nazi Germany, was the driving force behind the war. Hitler's ideology of racial hatred and his insatiable thirst for conquest plunged the world into darkness. Benito Mussolini, the dictator of Italy, allied himself with Hitler, but his ambitions proved far less grand, and his regime ultimately collapsed after the Allied invasion of Italy. These leaders, each with their own motivations and ideologies, shaped the course of World War II. Their decisions had profound consequences, not only for the outcome of the war, but for the post-war world as well.